Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was on ABC this weekend and made some rather dubious claims about the Capitol Hill riots and the danger that she says she was in. Let's take a listen to this.
Republican members of Congress who opposed raising objections to the certifying the Electoral College vote have written a letter to President-elect Biden opposing impeachment. Here's what the letter says. It says, in the spirit of healing and fidelity to our Constitution, we ask you formally request that Speaker Nancy Pelosi discontinue her efforts to impeach President Donald J. Trump a second time. A second impeachment only days before President Trump will leave office is as unnecessary as it is inflammatory. They're saying for the sake of unity, forego impeachment.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. One is we have to understand that what happened on Wednesday was insurrection against the United States. That is what Donald J. Trump engaged in, and that is what those who stormed the Capitol engaged in. And so when we talk about healing, the process of healing is separate and, in fact, requires accountability. And so if we allow insurrection against the United States with impunity, with no accountability, we are inviting it to happen again. That is how serious it is. And I do not believe that perhaps my colleagues weren't in that room. Perhaps my colleagues were not fully present for the events on Wednesday, but we came close to half of the House nearly dying on Wednesday.
Oh, you did? Half of the House nearly dying. Half. Really? That's what we came close to. And she has no... The phoniness here, of course, is off the charts across the board with everything she said. And the idea that half of the House almost died is she has no basis for saying that. But then again, this is the woman to remember. You shouldn't be surprised to see drama and hyperbole from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. This is the woman who went down to the border and, if you remember, a couple of years ago, took pictures of herself pretending to cry outside of an immigrant detention center. Actually, she wasn't even outside of the detention center. She was outside of a parking lot. She took pictures of herself outside of an empty parking lot, posing as if she was in tears. So keep that in mind. That's who this is coming from. But everything else about this was insurrection. Even if it was, okay, I'm not even arguing about what label we put on it, whether it was or wasn't. I don't believe for a second that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or any of the other Democrats actually care about insurrection in principle, because they certainly didn't care. But leftist radicals set up their own country in the middle of an American city for months. And we're allowed to do it. And we all just went about our day and said, okay, well, that's something you can do now, apparently. They set up their own sovereign country, said they were seceding from the Union, had their own country in the middle of the city. Is that not insurrection? Or, as I pointed out many times last week, invading a police station and burning it to the ground. It's a government building. That's an attack on law enforcement. Is that insurrection? She didn't care about that. And speaking of pretending to care about things, it's very difficult for me to hear people like this, or Democrats generally, as they have been in the media over the last several days, has been pretending to mourn the death of Officer Sicknick, who's the officer who died during the Capitol Hill riot. Now, I mourn for the officer and for his family. And I'm devastated that he died. I'm infuriated by his loss. Now, it's also not yet clear. It's not exactly clear yet how he died. There's a lot of information we haven't been given. And as far as I know, the images of his interactions with the crowd, whatever happened at that incident, we haven't seen any image of it. We haven't seen any video. We haven't seen any photograph, as far as I know, and I've looked. Maybe there isn't any image, but that would be hard to believe these days. So it's not exactly clear what happened, or how it happened. They haven't given us all the information yet. But however it happened, it's a terrible tragedy because we know that an officer died. Yet now you have Democrats in the media talking about Officer Sicknick and how terrible it is and what a tragedy it is. And it is terrible. It is a tragedy. I just don't believe that they give the slightest damn about him. And the reason for that is that this is the only dead cop that these people have ever mourned. Ever. Prove me wrong. Find me another example. Because there unfortunately have been a lot of dead police officers through history, and especially this past year. A lot of police officers were physically assaulted. Police officers were beat over the head with bricks during BLM riots. We got video in New York, police officer getting beat over the head with a brick. The only reason he didn't die, thank God. It's not for lack of trying, though. We don't give BLM credit because, well, they tried to kill a bunch of cops, but they failed. You don't get credit for that. It is the rest of society's great fortune that he's still alive, but you tried to kill him. But anyway, do you remember, did Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, did any Democrat, when that video came out in New York of the cop getting beat over the head with a brick, how many Democrats, how many people in the media condemned it? Did any of them? So I don't believe it. They don't really care. You know, pretending to be upset that the flag wasn't put at half-mast outside the White House right away. Once again, I think the flag should be at half-mast, and now it is. I think it should have been at half-mast right away. Do they actually give a damn, though, about that? No, they don't. Absolutely full of it. Listen, hit that subscribe button right now. Do it right now. I thank you for your compliance. It is somewhat appreciated.